course. Can I just sit? Okay, let's talk about games. Welcome to our game ecosystem panel. As we see, so actually in last year, the game activities on chain is occupied about like 45% in the whole like blockchain activities. So game is big. And today we're very delighted to invite all our distinguished guests, all from the world-class top game publishers, game developers, game platforms, and yeah, VCs that focus on games. So I'd like to let everybody have a short introduction. Maybe we can start from Michael.
Yep. So I'm Coop.
From just
Yeah, cool. So yeah, Joseph Cooper. I go by Coop. Long story on why I do that. But we're Earn Alliance. We're the largest Web3 game aggregator. 3,500 games that have been curated on our platform, all by our community, and we focus on content versus the floor price. We're also a game publisher. We're creating a game called Last Remains. Currently 400,000 users play it and don't know that they own cryptocurrency underneath the hood. And it's currently trending top 5 on the Epic Games Store. So I'll dive more into it as we keep going.
Hello, my name is Ryan, co-founder and partner at Hashed. Hashed started from 2016. We originate from Korea. We kind of positioned as a bridge between U.S. market, Western market, and Eastern market. Now we have office in San Francisco, Korea, Singapore, India, and opening up the office in Abu Dhabi. We are quite focusing on the gaming market. 2019, we were first investor of Axie Infinity and Sandbox. And down the road, we incubated many gaming projects like a Society, D-Labs, and like all other the gaming projects as well. And happy to be here and discuss more about gaming.
Hi, my name's Andy. I'm from D-Labs Games. We're a game developer, publisher, and also building a platform based in Seoul, South Korea. Our founder come from strong Web2 background. He was a former Nexon CEO, and we've been in this space for about like 3 years now. We have one game already launched and 2 more to be launching very soon. But as we see this gaming landscape and Web3 continuously evolving, we hope to just expand into better games that have the right gaming experience for future.
Hey everybody, I'm Michael. I'm with Mighty Bear Games, which is a Singapore-based game studio. I've been with the studio for about 2.5 years now, basically helping the studio from Web 2 to Web 3. So my background, I worked previously at a Japanese company called Double Jump Tokyo, building My Crypto Heroes back in the early days. And then Mighty Bear has been building games for 8 years now with Apple Arcade, and built a game called Disney Millimania, so it's done a lot of Web 2 games. And then about 2.5 years ago, went all in Web 3. So we built Mighty Action Heroes, and now we're building Goat Gaming, which is basically a game ecosystem with Mighty Action Heroes and other titles, kind of like the mini clip of Web 3, if you remember that. And my role is the product lead of Goat Gaming.
Hi everyone, this is Im from IVC. We are Web3 VC from Japan, and also we organize the IVS conference every year. Actually, 2 of the game studio here, like Mighty Bear and also D-Labs, are actually our portfolios. We've been investing into games since like 2021, and we also help incubating YGG Japan, YGG Southeast Asia, helping the game studio to grow in these regions. And our founders actually back up by quite a few Japanese gaming studio, including like Sega, Bandai Namco, DNA, Mixi, Akazuki. Happy to be here.
Thank you everyone, and I wanted to show my great gratefulness to all the everyone coming here and all the EDCON organizing team and Auntie who's emceeing for us. So a little bit introduction for myself. My name is V+. I'm the head of IVS Crypto. Also a member of IVC. So we are doing the largest crypto conference in Japan, and also the main event for Japan Blockchain Week. So it's all lasting the whole month, this month in July. And we just finished our main event 3 weeks ago in Kyoto. We got about 12,000 people in the venue, and also 307 side events, which is one of the largest in Asia, as long as KBW, also run by Hashed. Okay, let's get it into our first question. So actually, tell you a little secret. Maybe I even don't know. I was actually a professional esports player. So for Hearthstone, yeah, I won the first Japan championship for the card game. And so as a Web2 game player, I'm really interested in Web3 game as well. I'm a heavy Steppen user actually, like two years ago. So just want to ask maybe for everybody here, so why we need a blockchain in games? So what blockchain helps in the game industry? So anyone want to ask first? Okay, Michael?
Let's go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of different angles you could approach this. You could look at like fully on-chain games. You talk about the modding community, user-generated content. What I like to focus on a lot is more like the money layer that you add to games. So my background, I was playing MMOs since I was a teenager. I was trading with in-game items. Was like trying to arbitrage stuff from like game forums and eBay and all that. So I always liked the monetary aspect. I also played off poker. So I think like poker is more fun with real money than with play money. So to me, it's kind of adding this monetary layer to games to make basically trading like a very native feature of these game ecosystems. So, if you buy an NFT, if you buy and sell a token, that is basically done trustless. You don't get scammed anymore, which, I did back in the days. I got scammed. So I think that's kind of the main focus. And then we have started from like NFTs in games with, Axie Infinity and, My Crypto Heroes, the game I was working on before. And I think that evolved now more to ERC20 tokens as they become kind of like the main liquidity, like main form of liquidity. So I think the games are more focused around ERC20 tokens these days, but obviously depends on the game. Yeah, so I think what solves blockchain gaming, I think, is just building games with this monetary layer that people just like. So I think that's kind of like a new genre that's coming. But I think this said, like, we haven't still figured out product market fit for blockchain games. It's 2024. We're still figuring this space out. So I think there's a lot of design space still, and it will probably take time to really understand what the games would look like in the future.
Thank you, Michael. Any other points?
Yeah, so like my career, I've actually been playing games all my life. Not pro like you, but I was like an amateur Dota league back then. But Korean MMO was probably my bread and butter when I was younger. And what blockchain can really do, I would say, is the security layer is there, the financial incentive is there. But the whole ecosystem where traditional gaming involved around trading, like between guilds or people you meet in an active trading market, that's actually very, very important to a gaming ecosystem to be very robust in having a long-term life cycle with it. So there are definitely better genres that can probably fit the needs of what blockchain tech is available right now. But we're obviously looking further down the road, probably the next up to 10 years, how this infra can also expand better. But more so just the financial incentives, I would say ownership is actually very, very important, because back then, when we play any games, all the items that we have accrued, like we're talking like 10, 15 years ago, they're probably all gone right now for most of us, right? But imagine if the tech is there, you can still own it. It's a piece of nostalgia, it's a memory, and how you can probably translate that into different ecosystems going further. I think that's actually very exciting to be part of the space to look forward to. Although I know, where that's gonna be right now, we don't have that, but definitely the potential is there with blockchain.
Thank you, Andy.
Adding from there, I can bring like one example that one of the most successful game in Korea is Lineage. They started from 1999 and still like one of the top games for now. And the reason why they can sustain for a long time is that they open for the market. The user can own the asset and trade the asset in the third-party website. For example, one of the strongest word in Lineage is like the worth like 300K for now, and still it's very rare. And the castle there is like 1 to 2 million. So once people own that amount of money, worth of asset in the game, they cannot get out from the game. They think that it's life, and even they can make money from there. For example, all the game money in Lineage is exchangeable to fiat money, and vice versa. So the user there is, especially a heavy gamer, that's for them that's kind of their life. And also, we are learning a K-pop entertainment company. It's quite similar to game, I think. For example, fan users, they can own the photo card of the star. Then they can participate into the governance of the K-pop star. Also, they can feel the ownership of the K-pop. So the blockchain enable the game IP entertainment, like give the ownership to the user, and user actively participate into the game and ecosystem. Then the ecosystem flywheel learn very fast.
I mean, this is awesome. We're talking about Lineage because I sold my first illegal content for $700 in Lineage on the black market back in the day. So, super hardcore fan. And yeah, I think the whole concept of the black market is what we're really talking about here. That could be open, but then I think we really covered the game side, the gamer side. But like from a game developer studio side, it's also a new way to make money, right? So when we look at like the free to play audience, like when we're saying, hey, let's make games for free and put them out. People are like, wow, you're going to spend years making games and then put it out for free? Like, that's insane. But then this new monetization model of in-app purchases and ads came into play and made multi-billion-dollar juggernauts, right? And then we're going on to where we're at today, and we saw a very great proof of concept, which is still a huge experiment of Axie Infinity doing over $35 billion in transactions in 2021. That's not their revenue, that's just the market, right? And that's insane because what I see is that we're actually bringing in a new player into the game industry. We usually call them minnows, or people that spend $2. Dolphins spend 20. Whales spend hundreds of dollars. But there's this thing called monsters where are Web3 enthusiasts, and they're spending millions of dollars into this space, right? So there's a new way for games to monetize, and I think that's going to change the landscape in a big way.
Yeah, probably just a few things to add on. Like, beside the financialization, is probably something like great layers, like that's pretty like differentiate for the Web 2. I think that in terms of like the developer like incentive, it's also like it's a much more fair way of like revenue distributions. As in the old ways, probably a lot of times like indie game developers or like small game studio, they probably need to be partnering up with like the big game studios, like helping out with the publishing. They help like with the initial like foundings, but then like when like the studio start generating the revenue, like it's probably providing a probably not so fair way of like distributions. And also like for bigger titles, they probably needed to be working with like the third party like contractors. And sometimes like these contract comes with like a one-off agreements. And so after like the game is actually being published, sometimes since like the interest is not as aligned, so you would actually, the third party probably wouldn't want it to be fixing all the bugs, because even like a lot of like big titles within the first like weeks, like a lot of like even like from the top studios, like there will still be a lot of bugs. But then if some of the third party is actually in charge of that, they probably have less incentive because they got one-off fees. But if like all the revenue aspect could be like moving on chain, and all the revenue like generating possibly it could be like become more transparent. So for like the entire ecosystem will also be like in a more fair way. And also for like influencer, like game streamers, if they could be like helping to build the community inside the games, a portion of the revenue should also like be more of like fairly like distributed. Also like to add on top of the trading, like the features, we also like have seen some of the games that by adding like the trading features, especially for some of the open world games, that like if the gamers are actually willing to trade some of the like the in-game assets, such as for you to move forward for some of the games like progressing, you probably need a certain kind of like the element in order to fight like the big boss. So if you needed such as like the water element or the fire elements, you probably in the old way you need to be like going around in the open world looking up for the items like probably for days. But if you could be like trading immediately with other like players, sometimes that could be satisfying like the gamers emotional like levels in increasing the retentions actually for the games, because these days like gamers are actually getting very, very impatient. Usually like per session, sometimes like it needed to be like reduced much like shorter comparing to like the old way, any kind of like the combats or like looking in the open world. Yeah, so I think that like there are actually a few like techniques like within like the Web3 is actually making the whole industries, not just like the gamers like ownerships, but it's also on the developer fronts that is actually making the whole industry could be like moving to a more even like healthier and longer longevities, increasing the longevity for games.
Cool. Wow. I really like the developer side of the insight. And yeah, I think from the money layer, we can increase the engagement for both the players, contributors, and also developers to make the blockchain games more like a real life world. So wow, thank you. I learned a lot from this. And for next question, I'd like to ask Hope and also Andy and Michael, game developers and platforms. So what are those challenges you met during the game adoptions for the adoptions for the blockchain games, and how you guys would like to tackle with that?
Yeah, I'll just start. Yeah. So I think I've had a big problem with just using crypto technology, right? It's very early. I like to kind of say that it's like 1997 of the internet, where you're booting up your modem and hearing a bunch of weird noises, and it's not that great, and you go to google.com and you can't really find anything on the internet. So we're still like very early when it comes to the technology itself. So our answer to that was with the Last Remains project. It's a zombie stealth extraction game that you can play on Epic Games right now, is that it's just a game experience. We actually realized that when you start showing off crypto, you're actually turning off the gamer audience today, and it's also turning off Web2 KOLs. And we decided, let's just redo the website and make it look like a traditional game. Let's make sure that when you play the game that you can start earning NFTs without really knowing that they're NFTs. We don't even say that they're NFTs. So actually 70% of our audience has NFTs within their accounts, and some of them are worth hundreds of dollars on the floor price, right? And that's just the experiment that we're taking on, because we want to lower the friction of like, hey, you don't need a wallet to start. You don't need to be thinking about this as an earning mechanic. Let's just have fun. And then as you go down the rabbit hole, your fans will eventually figure out, holy crap, I have $1,700 on my account right now. Let's do something about that, right? And they'll learn how to get a wallet, and you'll of course have best practices in your blogs and all that other jazz. So I think approach is important.
Thank you, Cope.
Yeah, I would love to add to that too. Basically, we see something similar. The tech part we have kind of explored, and definitely there's a lot of friction still involved, which is why we've been building since 3 years ago, and there's a lot more better tech that has popped up, such as account abstractions. But we want to make that gaming experience as seamless as possible. So we took similar approaches where we're just launching the game as a game, right? Simple logins that users are familiar with using, such as social logins, so they can get right into the game, and then they get rewarded on-chain assets such as NFTs, SBTs, all that type of stuff. They'll be holding it in their account until they realize, like, one day they'll be like, oh wow, my account is worth something, right? And then what we would do to guide them to be able to extract that would be the next step, right? Proper education is also really important when it comes to gaming. Back then, if we take it a bit further, when you install like an MMORPG back like 15 years ago, you have to go through forums, right? Like patches, there were no launchers that allow you to pull the patch right away. You might have to download it from a link uploaded by the company itself, then you have to extract it in your folder, right? So, but over the course of, game development, all of this has become more easier, right? So I hope to see blockchain to allow more tools that allow for user experience to be much easier. And at the same time, we're also building not just games, we're actually building a platform. So, users that engage in our games, they can get rewards that they can eventually extract if they choose to. But for other investors or partners in our ecosystem that have assets, they can bring it into our game. And we're actually building a platform that can support that as well, which, eventually these assets will have value in the games that we build. But that's something further down the road that we hope to have a very diverse ecosystem when it comes to Web3 gaming.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, I think Coop, Andy, I think we've been spot on with account abstraction, making sure that onboarding is as easy as possible. You don't lose people in the funnel. I think that's something we spend a lot of time also with building Mighty Action Heroes. We still haven't solved it yet, so I think there's still room for improvement. But there's a lot of tools right now available to make account abstraction easy, gasless transactions, and all that. So I think that is much better than 3 years ago. One thing that we struggle with that might be a good learning to share is also, I think you need to figure out what's the audience that you're building this for, because if you make the onboarding too easy, then you might get mistaken for like a normal Web 2 game, but then you compete with other Web 2 games. So kind of Mighty Action Heroes was kind of that, where like, okay, let's shoot to be listed in the App Store and in the Play Store, and we managed that, so that was good. But it attracted a lot of normal players that looked at the game at the lens of like, all right, this is like another Fortnite or another Supercell game, and you know, you ship this game after 8 months, so obviously the production quality is not as high as these other games, so it's hard to compete. But at the same time, because we went very careful on the Web3 integrations and Ponzonomics and all that, it didn't have that because we were a bit more careful and built for the more mainstream audience. We kind of didn't really attract the Web3 audience either. So you kind of like this Web 2.5 hybrid where like we don't capture the Web 2 audience, we don't capture Web 3 audience. It's like who are we capturing here right now? So that was a bit of a big learning for us, and then we kind of leaned more into the degens and the wagering and competing against other players. So we added a mode where you can play against another player 1 versus 1 for real money, and we had really good retention rates. And it's kind of segueing into GOAT gaming, and why we're doing that is like we think that in gaming there are people that just like to play with money, and these are Web 2 players, and people in Web 3 that like to play with money. And I think there's a good overlap of like building a very easy platform for those people to just play with money online and play kind of like competitive casual games. So that's kind of like sharing a bit of learnings of how we got to where we are. And I think the other challenge is distribution. And there's a lot of chatter about Telegram right now as like the next Web3 gaming platform. We'll see, I guess. I mean, there are a lot of players, but there are also a lot of bots. So I guess we'll see what's happening there. But I think that's also going to be interesting to like figure out which Web3 game can solve distribution at scale to the right audience, basically.
If I just want to expand on that, because like this is actually, we're saying, oh, here's the approach, here's this and that, but it's actually really hard because we're talking about 3 different target audiences. We have our farmers, we have Web3 enthusiasts who actually put in money, farmers just extract, and then you have gamers, right? And when you go all Web3, I've actually been in a few Web3 games because I play a lot of them, and they're just like, hey man, I'll let you win this time, and you let me win, and then we can both, win together, and we're gonna make some money, But if you mix gamers into that space, a gamer would never let somebody else win, right? So I think there's that approach where you have to mix up that community that you're talking about, but it's actually extremely hard because we have 400,000 gamers on Last Remains, and you look at our Twitter and there's like 30, 40,000. So if I go to Binance and try to list right now, they're like, this isn't a crypto game. What are you talking about, right? We're not going to launch a token. So that means I need to go do Web3 enthusiasts, Web3 farming, and get this like whole big crypto thing. And I need to market for that and for gamers. So it's almost like we're marketing for 2 whole games. Like, where are we going to get the money for that? So it's a tough problem, and then that's why I think it's going to take a while to figure out this space.
And I guess I'll just add one more thing, like these are problems that we face as well, but then the one thing that really kind of strikes us in the hard for us to control is the compliances, right? Like you have to be compliant on the platforms, like you still want to, like after you get the user set, what are the legal complications probably between that, what we can or cannot build, right? That is something that's very out of our control as well. So we would need the whole market to really move in sync, which is why it's also very scary in this space, because if there are some rug projects or bad projects out there to do something bad, it actually takes us many steps backward while we're trying really hard to move forward as well.
Good to hear from all the perspectives. I really like the idea that, we have to see our audience, and either it's Web 2 and Web 3 definitely for Web 2. We need to do like a seamless user experience as like normal games. And next question for our VCs, interesting games, Ryan and Anne. So what kind of things like you like to evaluate on those game projects you like to invest in?
I think first it's like when you are building a Web3 games, you shouldn't just be thinking you are building a better Web3 games. You should always try to benchmark your contents, like comparing to the Web2. Like content is usually coming the first, unless you wanted to build pretty much like a farming game that you don't really need to be caring that much on the content side. But if you're planning to build something more sophisticated, whether it's like a RPG or like a shooting games or a card trading games, you have to be benchmarking, just not building a better Web3 games, but you should be thinking about how you are, what kind of like people you are trying to onboard. Are you trying to onboard like the farmers, or are you trying to onboard like gamers or someone in between? But if you wanted to have at least like some kind of like retention, you needed to make yourself competitively enough to the rest of the product in the market. So you should be bringing like building something attractively enough that either like Web 2 gamers are willing to play for your games. We look into like a lot of like games within a week. We're still looking into the games, but like for us to probably finally deploy, it's like we needed to see that point that you are actually building something standing out even from like the Web 2 games. That you will be able to like attract like gamers that it comes with certain kind of like innovation. So for us, we would still wanted to see that like content is still the key. And then secondly, is how you design the Web3 part. Do you really needed to do a Web3 games, or you could just completely stay on the Web2? So on the Web3 elements, it has to be completely making sense. Like what kind of games you are trying to build? Are you trying to just like copy others' model about, like back then it was actually a dual token model like for Axie, and then later it's like free to earn, for free to play, and then you incorporated like the NFT. And then like, but why do you need like either NFT or like token in your like ecosystem? Does it make sense? And will you be able to probably force your community to be able to use token in your like ecosystem, or is this just purely going to be an incentivized like layer that people are pretty much just dumping the token in the markets, and you still need to do like the token management from the open market, keep like buying back? So I think for us, like to invest into a game, it's all sort of aspects that we look at. It's like if you really needed to do a Web3 games, and also like content is always the key. So until like all this puzzle is actually coming like to put together, that we think it's completely making sense, that I think will be actually also fitting for our like investment thesis, that we will be like looking and also investing. And I think the latest trend is like in the tone ecosystem, there's a lot of like the casual games, a lot of like a tap to earn or like a farm to earn. But the thing is, we just not really sure about like how sustainable like these models are. And I think the next trends in the market is like people are trying to bring the IP to the games. And I was talking in the other panel that if you're trying to bring the IP, you can't really just plug in any IP into any kind of the games, because at the same time you're bringing the previous like communities and also users like from the previous IPs engagement. So when you're actually building out the games, targeting for a specific IP, you need to think about like you're targeting for that specific like audience group. If you're actually getting a very like a children focused like IP, then you should be building like a children like a focused IP. But if you're trying to build like bringing like a manga, you can't really just like plug in the hero into the game. This is why even in the Web2 world, sometimes like this model doesn't work. So I think that building game is definitely a very, very complicated, like a complex like process. But building a Web3 game is definitely not like easy. Could be like much more difficult than building a Web2 games. So these are all kind of like the aspects that we will be looking to in supporting the founders when we are looking into like the games like deal flow.
I think and shared most of my thoughts, but anyway, so far I asked around like all the founders that which one is the most successful Web3 game, and most of the founders said there's no successful game. Maybe Axie Infinity did a quite unique job for like onboarding a lot of almost 10 million users to their ecosystem. But as you know, like now token price drops a lot. Also, I think user perspective, there's not many users are playing Axie. So 4 years ago, we invested in many casual game, hyper casual game. But now trend is more like a mid-core and like AAA games. But to be fair, actually the cost to make a very high quality game takes quite a long time, like at least 3-4 years. So first of all, when we evaluate the founder, we see this founder is just making product, or he can manage all the P&L and he can raise the next round, etc. Because gaming is different from platform. Platform is like you can show, you can launch the platform and you can show the metric and you can share the growth of the metric. Then like a VC can join to the round. But gaming is like to make a metric, you have to launch the game, but the launching date is like three years later, so very hard to raise funds. So somehow they have to utilize their background, like we have a 20 years experience of game, and we already engage with this kind of funds, etc., etc. So they bring a lot of background information than gaming itself, but definitely it's a quite hard time for them once they running out all the capital. So this is one of the stuff that we are watching it, and also like the founder have to know definitely Web2. I mean gaming itself, but of course also Web3 as well. I think somehow like I'm making platform and we will bring the game to the platform in the future, or I'm making game after making success from this game. I will make a platform, but from our we're running actually a K-pop idol, and we decide to make our idol and also platform together, and they make synergy because they know the content side, they know how to make a Web3 K-pop group, and in other hand, the platform side, they can manage all the K-pop. I mean, this K-pop group to be a Web3 native K-pop group. So it makes synergy between them. So I think eventually gaming sector also have to be quite similar. That means the production level, they have to prepare platform business at the beginning. Also, the platform perspective, they have to know how to engage with the gamer itself. So yeah, I think this is kind of quite a difficult level of founder skill, but we are watching this kind of the stuff from the founder.
We need very strong founders who know everything. But yeah, as you mentioned, like the Korean idols, we have Triple S the day after tomorrow here in the yogi gymnastics to have a show, so you can be excited about it. And yeah, as we are in Japan, I think we have to think about how we deal with the Japanese gaming industry. Especially, Japan has a very good heritage in this game from like family computer. So, I'd like to ask everybody. So, what Japan can play a role? What kind of roles Japan can play in the blockchain game industry? And also, maybe what you'd like to do with the Japan market. Anybody?
Yeah, I'll start. So I came to Japan because I want to learn about that exact question. And the thesis that I have at the moment is there is a lot of genuine content being created on our Last Remains game from Japanese gamers. And what I believe is happening is, and we're not incentivizing it, we're not paying anybody here. We, in this like community of about 15,000 people, has kind of came together, and I'm meeting some of them today. And I believe this community doesn't really fit in the farming side. They actually fit in this genuine gamer meet enthusiast side, which is very important because you're looking for somebody who actually wants to be there and believes in what you're doing. And I have a feeling that when this culture gets into something, they really get into it. And that is what I'm really interested in. Of course, there's so much history here with CompuGotcha and game design and so much great things that I've learned over the years that I think we can bring into the game industry to kind of rebuild. But I think some of the biggest fans in gaming are going to be built here in Web3, and it might actually, I actually like to say in Asia in general, aside from just Japan, but in Asia is where Web3 gaming is going to flourish. It's not going to start in the West or like pop over there. I really believe it's going to pop somewhere here. And of course, we've seen it in the Philippines and Vietnam for, Axie, but I have a feeling that Korea and Japan might be the next big one for like real hardcore games.
Yeah, basically, I think the Asia is more into application, and U.S. market is more into infrastructure. So that's why we're learning K-pop. But Japan is like definitely we can. We all people here. We recognize Japanese animation is the top notch in the world. So we invested some of the animation related platform and the IP itself. Eventually launched on Web3, And basically, I think recently, from our research, animation through Netflix distribution, just Japanese animation market is all-time high. I think the only problem is like most of the company here is targeting more domestic market rather than global market. Of course, there's a language barrier, so we are looking for the founder who can communicate between the Japanese market and global market, or even they're targeting a global market with Japanese native IP. And of course, like existing IP like One Piece, Naruto, or like Dragon Ball, that kind of actually the ownership is quite complicated. So somehow it's hard to bring them out to Web3 purely or like organically. So I believe some native new IP in animation should be much easier to bring up to Web3. So we are looking for working with some of the production level of company or studio and some animator as well.
Yeah, so obviously already covered, but Japan is has amazing IPs in terms of the anime culture, and basically coming from a Web2 gaming space, we noticed that Japan is one of the top markets for gaming, right, in Web2. And the most important thing is also collaborations. I mean, I agree that the domestic market probably plays among themselves a bit more because you see a lot of games doing cross-IP collaborations with top anime projects that come out based on seasons. But nowadays, even in the Western scene, right, like there's a lot of anime conventions happening in the world. So anime itself is something that has penetrated globally. It's just how can this make sense in Web3? But some hardships would be, IP ownerships, like holders of these IPs, like how can we bring it into collaboration? So even for our studio, we are talking to a few major IPs that hopefully are more open-minded to, work in this Web3 space. And also regarding like the community here in Japan, right? Like gaming is definitely big, but something like trading card game you see is like very vibrant market. And I don't see much of a difference between like people that trade cards here, like a real tangible card versus like digital assets such as NFT, right? As long as what you're delivering is the right product and you can engage them, I think Japanese community is actually very, very strong and can be one of the more stickier ones that can keep playing the games that will come out.
I think a lot of really good points. Adding to this, so the previous company I worked with is a Japanese company called Double Jump Tokyo. They're now building the Oasis gaming chain, and they work with a lot of the large Japanese companies like Square Enix and Konami and others. And I think a lot of IP is in their hands, and I think a lot of the really good production is also in their hands, but they move really slow. At the same time, they're also very excited about Web3, but they need to take this very carefully because the hardest thing in Japan, I think, is still the regulation and regulatory framework. So it's crypto regulation, ERC20 tokens, but also gambling regulation. So when it comes to like NFTs, you look into like loot boxes and gambling and all that. So like navigating all of this is extremely difficult, especially as a publicly traded company in Japan. But the good news is I think the regulation in Japan is loosening up. I think the government, I think also the Shibuya mayor is like very involved in like conversations, right? So like the government is taking this very seriously. They kind of missed the boat on Web 2. So now they're saying like, let's just make Web 3 work at least in this country. So, I'm excited. Let's see what's happening. I think it just takes time as a lot of things in Japan, but once things are moving, and I think we'll probably see some popular IPs at some point on the blockchain as kind of exporting from Japan to the rest of the world.
Yeah, Japan is definitely within the region is one of the most potential gamers market because it has been one of the pioneer in the gaming space. Started off like the consoles, moving to the hand device. So and also like compared to the regions such as China, Korea, it's completely like banning Web3 games. And this is also like a market that you could be possibly generating higher ARPU comparing to like Southeast Asia or like India market. But this market just have a certain kind of like the appetites, such as like the aesthetic style. It's very different than the Western styles. And also this market, it's they really like the any kind of like a RPG. This is a market that they really have the preference for. If your like game has a build up with a storyline, with your own worldviews, typically, usually this kind of like the games will be like doing better. And this market also has a preference for like a single person mode instead of like a multi people's. I think it's due to a lot of like the culture's characteristics. And also like this is a very mobile market. So I think this is probably also some of advice for some of the developer if you're actually coming to these markets. This tend to be probably like according to like statistics of this markets that for games coming to this market. And also like the IP also works, but then you needed to build in a way that the IP, the fan, as I mentioned like earlier, that your fan base needed to be coherent, and also with the game design. Even for the Web 2, for like a lot of like game studio just like plug in the IP, such as Sega did the jump assemble. I don't know if you are familiar with the game. It's like they have like the IP from like Dragon Ball, like Jujutsu Kaisen, or like One Piece. They put all the hero together like in the battle arena and battle to each other. But like usually the fans like wouldn't be having that kind of emotional or immersed experiences. And this is something that, especially for Japanese gamers, that were having a very high demands. It's about like the immersive like experiences when you're actually trying to play the game. This is why Zelda has been like one of the most successful like games, or like Elden Rings, like for the past like 2 years coming out from Japan. So yeah, just some of the advice like for game builders if you are looking for these markets. Gamers like here's much more sophisticated, or if you are doing the casual games, this is also working very well here, but you needed to provide a very relaxing like more mode, because a lot of like people here are very stressful on the daily life. A lot of times it's like playing the games, like doing probably like the commute time on the metro and all these. Yeah, you probably see Japan has one of the highest ratio on the metro or bus that people like playing like mobile games. So like providing a really relaxing like mode within the games, it's also quite important for this market.
Cool, that's a good insight from Japanese market. Okay, as we're running out of time, I think please, if you're a developer here in Japan and also global, please, yeah, talk with our panelists after. And also, if you want to learn more about the game ecosystem in Korea and Japan, please go to Korean Blockchain Week, which is September 3rd and 4th, I guess, right? Okay, and also IBS 2025, the time is decided, July 2, 3, and 4 next year. So we also have in Kyoto, yeah, not in Tokyo. And we also have a great existence for like, especially Japanese blockchain games. This year's most of the like big game developers of the Web2 games are coming, and they would like to release some new like information of Web3 games. So okay, I think time's up, and thank you so much for coming to our panel, and looking forward to talk with you guys around. Thank you.